Hey, what's up, car fam? It's such an exciting time if you are an Audi enthusiast, especially if you really appreciate the RS3 for the package that it is. So, we know that the 8Y generation launched in 2022. Now we are at the time where the facelift is here and they've made some adjustments to the exterior design, a couple of performance things to help in the handling department, and then a couple of interior changes and things like that too. So I wanted to share my thoughts and what I'm excited about. I know there's some things that people are not so happy about in the design department and the interior, and maybe why there's not more power and just all this different stuff, but I'm coming from the perspective of someone that truly enjoys the changes that they've made, and I'm excited to share those. So if you don't, cool, that's up to you. Everyone has their personal preference, and that's why it's cool that there's multiple options, and the current 8Y still an amazing package. So I wanted to talk first about briefly what I currently drive, to kind of add a little bit of perspective of why I'm interested in this car and why it kind of fits my bucket of cars that I'd want to own in the future. So I currently have a 2016 Audi A3, the 2-liter with the quattro all-wheel drive. Such a fun daily. So I'm very familiar with the size of the 8V and the 8Y, and so for me, I think it checks a lot of boxes of being able to have a car that has all-weather capability. It's comfortable and it's sporty when you want it to be, or it's relaxed and sleeperish if you when you need it to be as well. So it's such a cool offering. And so in addition to that, we picked up a 2018 Audi SQ5. Such a fun, practical daily. That's what I'm sitting in right now. It's an SUV that's basically a sports car underneath, as far as the motor, transmission, the suspension, mounts, all these different things that they've made changes to, the seating. Yeah, super cool package. So as you can tell, I love my Audis. I got my first one in 2021, and I'm sure I'm going to have more in the future. But right now, the RS3 is definitely something that I want to have in the future. But diving in, bravo to Audi, honestly. One of the things that excites me the most, there's so many subtle changes, but one of the things that really excites me the most in the exterior design department has to be the rear diffuser. They knocked it out of the park. I was not expecting that much of a motorsport style rear diffuser, where basically the openings for airflow basically are centered there in the middle. So a lot of times when they make these really sporty looking rear diffusers, like, they're half functional. This one, if you take a look at it as if you're kind of looking at it from an angle, the way it slots down, you'll see that there's those different openings and ducts to help with airflow, and that looks so clean because it looks like it's something that's taken straight from like a GT3 RS, but obviously in a more chill version for the Audi that cost a lot less money. But the fact that they even paid that much attention to the detail, so nice. I do hope that more of the matte finish is available here in the States. The gloss is really nice, but I think the matte just really has that true like Porsche GT3 product type of look and feel, and so we'll see what happens. Either way, I think the design is amazing, and then them adding the center reflector there, my hope is that either in the aftermarket someone makes a product where you can actually have that light up when you're braking, because I see it on cars like the Subaru WRX. I see it on cars like the Toyota Supra, and to me it's a huge safety bonus when you have that and you're approaching a red light and you see that car kind of hit the brakes and it flashes to indicate like, hey, I'm slowing down, or whatever the case is. I think that's so cool. So hopefully here in the States they can actually have that activated. I don't know if they'll go through all of the extra expenses of making it light up just for the US market. I highly doubt it, but I think the aftermarket will address that, because that's such a cool opportunity that we haven't had in an Audi. I don't know if ever, but definitely been a while since I've been following Audi products and stuff like that. So that part's super exciting. And then as far as the front end, to me, I don't know if everyone kind of notices or picks up on this, but when you look at the front, it definitely gives you a baby RSQ8 vibe. And I mean that in a positive way. Like the RSQ8, the team that designs that car, I believe, is the same people that's designing the RS3 now, and a couple other products. You can just tell those people are like crushing it, and it looks so different than, like, let's say like the new A5 and like different ones where it's like a super curvy design, a little more less exciting, honestly, like not as good as like timeless classic Audi. And when you pay attention to cars over the past like 30 plus years, you'll notice a trend. The more boxier and harder edges and things like that that a car has, it typically ages a lot better. So for example, one car that comes to mind is the E39 BMW M5. When you look at that car, it's like, man, why is it so timeless? Why does it still look good, in 2025? And it's because it's pretty simplistic as far as how those edges were kind of designed and things like that. So boxier cars, the better. The more curvy, it can get interesting. I feel like this car balances the curvy with a little bit of boxy very well. To me, I feel like even the 8V and the 8Y are basically have that timeless look of like the B7 RS4. And I really like that because it's just in 20 years from now, it's going to look really cool. I think this facelifted RS3 definitely will be the one that has the futuristic look but also timeless at the same time. So I'm so excited, and I think a lot of the changes that they made are very, very welcome. So overall, in the design department, I think they knocked it out of the park. One of the things I keep seeing is the RS3 badge missing from the front. To be honest, like, this car stands out so much. Like, if you can't tell that's an RS3 from the front, you're probably just not a car enthusiast. But I could tell, like, to me, it's not that big of a deal. Like, yeah, I think you can just add that badge back if you want, but to me, it's still the way the front is designed, the way the rear is designed. Like, look at that rear diffuser. Like, you're not gonna mistake that for a regular A3. And then I'm sure you can add that back, so like, oh well, not the end of the world. And then I think the front, like I said, they crushed it. Definitely a baby RSQ8 in a really great way. I'm a sedan person, so I don't really care about the hatchback coming to or sportback coming to the States. I don't think this version, the 8Y, looks as good as the 8V did as a hatchback. So, but this 8Y, and a half, basically the facelifted version, I think does look better as a sportback compared to the first 8Y. So, those are just kind of my thoughts. But either way, like, it's such an amazing product. And the fact that this isn't like hybrid now or anything like that, like, man, that's so amazing that they could still keep this car so so fun and exciting in a time where everything is basically going, electric or hybrid and stuff like that. So I think that part's really cool. So many people are so focused on horsepower and torque, and to me, I'm more of a handling over power person. The reason being is because handling is what you're really going to be able to utilize 99% of the time to be able to actually put down the power that you have. So the changes that they've made to be able to make that a reality, the 8Y was already a huge improvement over the previous gen. I had a chance to drive the 2019 RS3, and it was great. Like, it was a fun car. I think it's still, definitely is still in today's market, with it being, even cheaper than obviously the 8Y. I think it's an incredible offering, but in the handling department, I think the changes that they've made from the 8Y, from everything I've heard, drastically improved. And because of the hardware changes, I'm 99% confident that that is the case. I'm sure it handles amazing. So I'm excited that they've really focused on that, and so much so with this facelifted version. Now that one actually is 7 seconds faster on the Nürburgring compared to even the 8Y that launched in 2022. And that car already had amazing reviews as far as like, hey, the handling, much sharper, better turn-in, better track performance, and just better all-weather capability and stuff like that too. So it's such an incredible time to be a car enthusiast. The technology that's available and how they're able to bridge that with the software that's utilized to be able to make these changes, incredible. And so that part excites me the most, because the car already has plenty of power. Like, I think of me driving even my SQ5 that has 369 horsepower or something close to that. I always mix up the horsepower and torque on this car, and it's plenty of power for like day-to-day driving. Handling is where you're always like, hey, if you're doing a mountain run or hitting your favorite back roads, like, that's where you're always gonna like want that extra edge, and the RS3 offers that. And so I think it's incredible how they've basically updated the software to where now all of those hardware pieces that work with the torque splitter, with the torque, the brake vectoring, with the speed sensors, like all of these things are communicating in a much better way. Like there's a lot of hardware that's basically working the magic when you make one turn on a, on the track or on your favorite mountain road and stuff like that. It's so incredible. And so how that's going to translate to just day-to-day driving is, let's say you are merging onto like the main busy street, from a red light from a dig. The way you're able to put the power down in all-wheel drive, like, it's already amazing, but now it's going to be so much sharper for you to dart out and be like, hey, I need to get in front of traffic and things like that. You're going to be able to actually do that on a sharper, turn and lock, and not have any issues with, wheel spin and different things like that, because now those computers are going to make sure each wheel is actually getting the power that it needs and stuff. And so we've seen a lot of the track footage. There's some included in this video. Like, it handles amazing. And what I like is that it looks very flat as it's making some of these turns. You don't see a ton of body roll at all. Very, very minimal. So the Audi RS team definitely knocked it out of the park here. And so one of the things that I'm really excited about is that with this RS3, I haven't heard anyone complaining that, hey, they've made all of these changes and now the ride is like so much firmer. It's not as comfortable, and because I feel like that was an issue that came with like the Civic Type R, for example. The FK8 was like, hey, it handles great, different things like that. And then the, FL5 version came out, and that one was like, hey, it handles way better, but now it's like so stiff and it's not as comfortable and things like that. So I like that they did not compromise that in any way. They just made the software communicate in a much more intelligent and faster way, so that way people can, enjoy that, whether they're on the track or even just, hitting their favorite back roads, which you definitely should be in an RS3. So those are some of my, initial thoughts as far as like the performance and handling, the design on the outside. One of the things that I wanted to touch on is the interior. This is where I think, especially here in the steering wheel department, that's where there's a lot of like, I don't know if that was the best decision to go with. I'm honestly excited for the price that you're probably going to be paying for this car. I think it's exciting that they're making changes. I do wish that the buttons on the side, where basically your fingers go for, adjusting things in the MMI and stuff like that, I wish it was just the traditional hardware, where you just kind of push it in, regular buttons, versus like the haptic kind and stuff like that, because those typically are not like the most responsive, and they're kind of a little funny. And then with age, 10-15 years, like a regular button's typically going to be a lot better. But I know Audi also crushes it when it comes to things, and they have teams that are dedicated to making sure those experiences are awesome, and this is their RS product. So we'll see. I'm hopeful that it should be pretty good. I didn't hear any journalists saying that, hey, I'm like hitting it as I'm turning and stuff like that. So I'm sure it's pretty solid, and I like that at least there is the lighting behind it, which, it makes sense, but I think it's going to look really cool during the day and even at night. Like, I haven't seen any night views of the interior. I bet that's going to look amazing because they've added lighting on the side here, and not too much where it's like Mercedes and it's just this giant neon machine in your car. I think it's overdone in that way, but I think Audi did an amazing job with like having additional lighting, more exciting and stuff like that, but not over the top, which I think is cool. So yeah, I think the steering wheel design to me seems very comfortable, and it looks like it's something that's very great for those spirited drives of like, hey, I'm on the canyons, I'm in the mountains, stuff like that. I just think of me driving up in the mountains in the snow and trips that we like to take, and having that sort of more like split design where basically the top and the bottom are flat. I think that's going to translate to a really cool experience, because you kind of still have that nice width, where your hands are placed. And then if you look at a steering wheel for like a cup car or something like that, like that's how it's designed. It's basically, very flat on the top and the bottom, and then you have like your wider part for, where your hands go and stuff like that. So I think it's very motorsport, and I think it's a cool thing to at least try out for them, especially with you paying more for this car. I feel like the bar just has to go up versus it being so similar to like an A3 and S3 and stuff like that. So I like that they made a difference there in that design. One thing I'm excited about too is that they actually added the new rev counter. So basically that tachometer that typically was like the runway style and things like that, now they have more of the traditional gauge, you know, that goes from left to right for the RPMs. I think that's really cool. I wish it was a little more circular, where it's almost like the you know, B9, Audi S4, SQ5, even like the 8V generation on the A3, like just the regular perfect circle dial. I think that would have been cool, but I'll take that for sure. I think it's still an awesome design, and it's exciting and it's playful, and it just fits the car and just the overall design language of the car and things like that. So I think they knocked it out of the park there. As far as pricing, I'm very curious how this is going to sit. I haven't looked at the exact pricing right now of all of its competitors, but my guess is, because right now the Audi RS3, I believe, is $62,900 right now, $62,900. When it first came out in 2022, it was $59 and some change. So my guess is it's going to be at least 66. We'll see, but I'm thinking it's going to be at least 66 before any like options and stuff like that. And I feel like this car may have a few more options than the current generation right now, because that one really just has like wheels, carbon package, RS exhaust, and like a couple other things, blind spot, you know, monitoring, stuff like that. The roof, having that blacked out. So I think there's going to be maybe just at least 2 or 3 more additional options that they're going to offer. So I'm curious what that price is going to be like when you actually build it out the way you want, for some of the specs that we've seen for like press cars and stuff like that with these driving impression videos and things like that. So we'll see. But yeah, I'm guessing at least 66 before options, and then kind of just take it from there. Keeping in mind, this car is, there's more technology. They've actually added a couple of things, even as far as the MMI, where it gives you more performance information for, like, let's say your brake temperature. One of the things that I noticed you also have access to is how the temp for the torque splitter is, how the temp for the gear oil is. Like, these are all super important data points. I know a lot of these were already there, but I don't believe brake disc was there before. And then gear oil, I don't remember that one, but it might have been there already, so you can correct me if I'm wrong. But anyway, having information to make sure that, hey, how am I managing the heat? Even if you're not on track, let's say you're doing a spirited run, like I was just in the mountains this past weekend, you're doing a ton of passes, you're like either up or you're down, or you're like all these different things that you're just having fun. Like, you're gonna be increasing all of those temperatures very, very quickly. And at least with this, in the, you know, media display, you can see like, hey, how am I managing the temp for like my engine oil right now? Am I super hot there? And then like my coolant's also like, you know, way too high, or whatever the case is. Like, I know they haven't had problems with this car overheating in any way, but you still need to manage that, because especially in the summer, man, let's say you're doing a run where you're just hitting your favorite back road in the summer and it's like 115, you know what I mean? Or you're doing something in the mountains, it's like, hey, you're climbing up to like 10,000 feet or whatever, and then it's also a summer day. Like, that's when you really have to be keeping in mind like all of these things. So it's not just for track use, in my opinion. The more you drive and do a lot of traveling and different types of you know, spirited driving, this is something that's super critical, and I'm glad that they have it there. So many exciting changes, honestly, like so many things that I think are really cool. It's unfortunate that we're not going to get the bucket seats here in the US. Like, those look so clean, and I've seen them on other cars, but you know, I'm sure if someone really wanted, they could just go with maybe ordering some of those and having them shipped here from Germany or something like that. I don't know if that's an option, but maybe there's like a back way to kind of do that, or just getting some really cool aftermarket buckets, because this is the type of car, especially with the increased handling performance, I think you're going to really benefit from some solid seats. And I think the current seats are pretty good, because I think of these seats like it has a pretty aggressive bolster right here on the sides, and man, that's a game changer, even just having it right here and stuff like that. So I can imagine in the RS3, this latest version, you're gonna want some really good seats so you're not like sliding all over. That helps with confidence, helps with control, and even for your passengers, making sure that they feel pretty comfortable and they're not swaying and sliding off the seat and stuff like that. So many cool things here. Another thing that I wanted to kind of talk about is just how this car sits in comparison to the S3. I think the S3 right now, like I was looking at the offerings of like how much that car is right now, and it's just, to me, doesn't make sense. Like, it's a nice car. They've made changes. I'll definitely cover the S3 because that's always been like a soft spot for me, is like the S3. I think it's a perfect little car, especially in the 8V generation. But now when you actually look at the numbers of like, hey, should I get a used RS3 for 63, for example, with let's say 10,000 miles or something like that, or get a brand new S3 for 65? Like, I don't think it really makes sense, to be honest. Unless you're really like, hey, I don't want to have to pay for the extra maintenance costs of like owning an RS3 where like brakes are more expensive. You're maybe more concerned about where you take it to have maintenance done and different things like that. So I totally get it. Like the S3 is definitely a great package, but when you look at the current ones, especially like the 22 to 24 S3s, they're nice, but they're still missing a lot of that that from the design department, especially that the RS3 offers. So it's nice that we have that. But yeah, I was just looking the other day because I'm like, does it make sense to actually get an S3 with the current price brand new? Like leasing one, like, okay, yeah, that's totally different because you're like basically paying half, because depreciation on S model Audis is great if you're buying them used, but if you're like owning it and like, hey, like this is gonna be cool, like I don't think it would make sense to drop 60 plus on an S3. I just personally don't. That's just my opinion, owning two Audis, having these for like a couple years, thinking about the performance and different things like that. Like the S3 is great, but I think it's better when you buy some of these S models just like a couple years later and basically get it for a discount. Yeah, you're gonna have maintenance costs and things like that, but I still feel like you're gonna come out ahead if you take care of it and, you know, make sure that you get a good version. So that was just something I wanted to kind of throw out there because I know a lot of people may be considering it, like, should I get an S3 and just drive it? It's, you know, they're amazing, but especially if you're buying a brand new one, like I see some of these at dealerships for like 63. I mean, they start at, start at the high 50s, I believe, or something like that. But yeah, there's some of them, once you add options and stuff, you're going to be basically paying more for a fully loaded S3 versus getting a lightly used RS3, for in the 60s and stuff like that. Because I've seen some RS3s basically that are like 71 for like brand new and, stuff like that. So yeah, I just don't see it making sense. The market's a little interesting with what some of these dealerships are trying to get for an for an S3. So just kind of keep that in mind. See what makes sense to you. You can't go wrong with any Audi, to be honest. Like they're all pretty great as far as like some of their regular, cars that basically aren't like EVs and stuff like that. I think they're all pretty good in their own right, but especially in the A3 lineup, do your research, drive it multiple times to see what makes sense. So these are just some of my thoughts. Like, I think I'm so excited to see this car in person. I think it's going to be amazing. It's going to have so much road presence. The colors, my wife really likes the Kimura gray color. I like that color a lot too. I think it's super fun. It's very chill and also has like a lot of dynamic coloring to it, like depending on the lighting and if it's cloudy and all that kind of stuff. I have seen that car dirty and I feel like it just kind of has an interesting brown tint when it's dirty. Like, I know you're always going to keep your cars clean, but like it does kind of make a difference when how your car looks when it's dirty, because you're not going to have time to always wash your car and keep it so pristine every single day. So I like colors sometimes that can kind of handle a little bit of a dirty, weather, especially, winter and things like that. Like, how does it actually look? But that's a solid color, sleeper look. One color that I really like is the Daytona gray matte color, or matte gray, however they actually have it structured. But that color is so nice. It basically looks like a wrap, or if you're familiar with like BMW's paint and some of those frozen colors where it's basically like a matte wrap on the paint. That's kind of how it looks, but like it's made and comes from factory like that. So the matte gray RS3, that has such a mean presence. Like, that looks so nice, so aggressive, and it's a color that's pretty timeless too. I don't know how some of these matte paints are gonna look in 10-15 years, and like how those will age, because I look at some older cars with wraps and like it kind of looks funny. I know this is totally different when it's like from factory and it's more less cheap looking, and it's very, very nice quality. I think it's gonna be really cool, but I'm very curious if you go with that versus just like a regular dark gray color, let's say, with any Audi. Like, what does that look like in 10-15 years? Because this is the type of car most people, I feel like, keep them pretty long, because you're just so satisfied with the performance. I feel like people keep these until they go like Porsche Cayman or 911 or something like that. So I think keeping in mind, like, hey, this is going to be a car that you typically want to keep for a while, think much bigger picture. Some trendy colors, like, depending on your preference and things like that, especially if this is a long-term car for you, keep that in mind, that you may want to go with maybe a more classic color, so in the year 2045 you're like, yep, I'm glad I got that color and not anything too funky or whatever. But depending where you live and your personality, obviously you're going to go with something different. So those are just some of my initial thoughts. I'm so excited for it. I will definitely share updates when this car hits the States, when pricing is announced, when I'm able to actually see one in person. This is one of those cars that for my channel I'll definitely cover a lot, because I would love to own one of these one day in the future when the timing makes sense. The 8V is amazing. I think it's a steal, especially as the years go by. Like, it's still not a bad option at all. And if you're more of a power over handling person anyway, like, why not get the 8V? It's great. The interior is timeless. I currently own the 8V A3, and honestly, it's a 2016 and we're now in 2024, and my interior still looks amazing. It still looks really, really good. So 8V can't go wrong. You can get the RS3s from that generation for low 40s to somewhere in the 50s, depending on mileage and stuff like that. So definitely a great offering, and all that money does add up when you factor in if you want to do any mods or all the other stuff, maintenance costs and things like that. So can't go wrong with the 8V. But if you're really like, hey, I want to get something and kind of have a futuristic car that's basically up to times, and offers so much in the handling department, the RS3s are also one of the few Audis that actually holds their value very well. No car is going to be perfect. They're all going to depreciate and stuff like that for the most part. But this one, compared to like an A or S model of any Audi, does very well, even better than some of the other RS cars I've noticed and stuff like that too. So that's one thing with the RS3, like especially factoring in S3 versus RS3, depending on how much you're going to drive it and if it's going to be a long-term or a short-termer thing. Like, Audis and depreciation is definitely something that you need to keep in mind, depending on what you're looking to do and some of your goals and what car you want to get into next, how often you drive. If this is a car that's a daily driver and you're going to put like 50,000 miles in the first, 2-3 years or whatever, or if this is like, hey, I work from home, barely drive, like totally different scenario. So let me know your thoughts. Let me know what you think the aftermarket should bring to the table for this car, and what you're excited to do to your RS3 if you got one. Catch you later. Peace.